I'll get you some more.
You ready?
Okay. All right. It's now 5:37 p.m. Today, I believe, is April
Ninth.
9th.
6 days
To-
ago.
April April 9th, 2019. City of North Miami uh, Community Redevelopment Agency meeting. We are going to start with roll call, Mrs. Clerk.
Board Member Galvin, Board Member Keys,
Here.
Board Member Desulme,
Here.
Board Member Bien-Aimé, Chairman Joseph.
Here.
Chairman, you have a quorum.
Thank you. I don't know who will do us the honor of leading us with Pledge of Allegiance. We have two officers. To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Approval of minutes, March 12, 2019. We need a motion.
Second.
I have a motion made by Board Member Desulme to approve the minutes for March 12th. That motion was seconded by Board Member Keys. All in favor? All opposed?
Who will introduce the presenter? You will, or?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Item number 1, resolution of the a resolution of the chair and board members of the North Miami Community Redevelopment Agency approving the City of North Miami workforce and affordable housing needs assessment and housing revitalization area strategy study and providing an effective date.
Good evening. Hello? Hello? Good evening. Last fiscal year, the CRA board had approved a study to be done by the FIU, Office of Economic Development, on our housing needs for the city of North Miami and primarily within the CRA area. We hired Dr. Ned Murray, who is an eminent expert in housing issues, and Mr. Murray is here to provide us with his presentation, his recommendations, and hopefully we can approve it tonight.
Right before, can you make a remark on the young attorney we have?
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Mm.
For the record, Mr. Rubio is here for Mr. Zelkowitz.
Okay, thank you.
Dunya?
Okay. Good evening, and thank you, Mr. Chair, fellow board members, staff. I'd also like to extend my thanks to the CRA staff, the economic development staff, Sam, and the planning staff for having helped us throughout the process in terms of the guidance and direction that we needed to deliver the study that the city was looking for that would connect the economic development aspirations of the city, particularly as it relates to the CRA, with the workforce housing element, which is obviously critical to economic development. Once again, my name is Ned Murray. I'm the Associate Director of the Florida International University Metropolitan Center. As Rasha said, I'm a housing expert, but actually my background is more in economic development. But as an economic development expert, I understand the importance of having an adequate supply of workforce housing, because you really can't have a sustainable economy without, obviously, housing for your workers. And that's not just the issue of affordability, it's a question of location, access, types of housing, and that's what we tried to address as part of this study. So with that, keep in mind, as we did throughout the study, how the economy of the city, and specifically the CRA, relates to the needs and the supply and the policies and strategies that we'll recommend at the end relative to connecting the economy and the city's supply and demand issues relative to workforce housing. The way we approach it, and once again, it being more from an economic development perspective, we like to look at things in terms of demand and supply. This is done in all the studies we've done, and I think many of you know the FIU Metropolitan Center has been doing these types of studies since the bubble of last decade, not only here in Miami, but in Broward and Palm Beach and throughout Florida. Our approach is to really create an understanding of the demand conditions, and the demand conditions obviously are typically economic in nature. It's the workers, it's obviously the wages, it's the occupations and industries that they work for. This is what drives demand for workforce housing. So getting an understanding of those demands is the most important thing. So we like to separate out the demand side of the equation first, and then we'll visit the supply side, and then we bring them together to determine what issues that we have and what opportunities, more importantly, that we have. Obviously, the first thing we want to look at is population growth. Good news there, the city of North Miami's population at 62,158. The last census represents a 5.7% increase since 2010. That's over 3,300 individuals that have moved into the city during that period. However, on the downside, the city's median household income is 15.2% less than the median household income of the county as a whole. And I'm going to touch a little bit more on why some of these things are as they are. And then the poverty rate issue. You do have a higher poverty rate here in the city as a whole compared to the county. And in fact, that 37.9% of your children that live in poverty compared to the 27% in the county. And we'll talk a little bit more about why that is. Other key demand factors in terms of trying to figure out what type of housing is needed in the community to address the workers who live here is the labor participation rate. Here we have good news, a labor participation rate of 64.4%, 39,000 workers. That compares to 62% for the county. So you have a higher labor participation rate than the county as a whole. So you may have less income overall, you may have a little higher poverty rate, but guess what? You've got a higher labor participation rate, which means you got more people in the workforce and also more people looking for jobs. The median population age, once again, a positive 32.8 compared to 39.3 for the county. The city's under 25-year-old population is increased by 4%. So these are good signs. You don't, in areas that are declining or having issues relative to the economy or to quality of life, typically you're not going to see a lot of younger people. You're going to see a loss of family households in particular, and certainly you're going to see a dip in your labor participation rate. 19.4% of your population now, 25 years of age and over, have a bachelor's degree or higher. This is less than the county, and an estimated 24.8% does not have a high school diploma compared to 19.4% for the county. So you're a little less educated overall than the county. So obviously this is an issue that we need to consider as well. On the supply side, your owner-occupied households have decreased. These are your owner units have decreased by 16.2%. That's 1,600 households since 2010, while your renter households have increased by 16.5%. So it's almost like a flip. That's 1,443. Now, this is not unusual, as you probably know. The county and the country as a whole is moving more towards renter housing. The demand is greater for renter housing ever since the bubble of the last decade. So you're consistent with the county here. Nothing out of the ordinary. Your housing supply is largely multifamily of 20-plus units. That's 43% of your housing stock, and one unit detached, those are your single-family homes, which make up about 38.2%. So that's your essential mix right there. An issue, of course, which is also an issue for the county as a whole, and something that we really need to address not only here but You may be aware that the Metropolitan Center is also doing a affordable housing blueprint for the county and a master plan for the city of Miami. One of the issues that's prominent is the aging of our housing supply. Now, in the case of the city of Miami, you've got better news than other communities. You've got a lot of your older housing is actually in good condition. A lot of the older housing in the county, where you look at Liberty City and Little Haiti and places like that, is obviously not housing that is going to be able to survive for much longer. Other market factors, 61.4% of your renters are cost burden and 40% severely cost burden. You're about the same as the county there. The median value of owner-occupied homes at 157.9 compared to 221 for the county. As I mentioned to other presentations I made, this is actually probably good news because you did not appreciate as fast as other areas. Other areas are probably overvalued more so than the city. You have a solid housing stock for the most part. It's just that it's undervalued. That's good news. And the average monthly rent, obviously with all that demand for rental housing, has gone up here in the city as it has gone up throughout the county. $1,500 for a two-bedroom, obviously. Rent increases are just a common occurrence now throughout Miami-Dade and South Florida. Now, to look at some of the areas, what we did is we compared the city of North Miami with the county as a whole, but then we looked at the city itself, compared the CRA with the city as a whole, and then we even drilled down further to individual census tracts within the CRA and in the city to see where the action is going on, so to speak. What's happening in terms of population, what's happening in terms of income, what's happening in terms of housing. So this first map that you can see the outline of the city, the outline of the CRA. You can see individual census tracts that we're able to show here, where you have higher population growth versus areas that have either have no population growth or lost population. And you can see the one right in the bullseye there, 2.18, right in the middle of the CRA, just north of the downtown, obviously, the lost population in the last 7 years.
I'm sorry, what's the red one? Go back, please.
That's
The 2.8?
218.
218.
Yeah.
So the 2.1 is the level of,
No, that's the census
Census.
the
tract.
census tract.
Census tract, yeah.
That's folks moving, okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Right in the heart of the city. This compares the CRA, this table, with the city as a whole and with Miami-Dade County. You can see the income, the variation there with the city, 37.49 to 44,000. We don't obviously have a median for the CRA because we have all these various census tracts, but you can see a lot of them fall in that 30, where you see the highest percentages is in the 35 to 49 range. And then we have a map that kind of shows that even more clearer, where you have the higher median household incomes are obviously in the darker purples, and then those with the smaller median household incomes are the lighter color. So once again, you're capturing a number of the census tracts within the CRA, 209, 219, 306. These are in the area of 23,700 to 32, and then the little lighter color blue is in the 32.9 to 42 range. So for the most part, your CRA is well under even the city's median household income. So that these are areas obviously that obviously relate to some of the other issues we saw in terms of loss of population, and what we're going to see is in terms of also housing issues. Median family income, that was household, this is family income now. Once again, you see the lowest median family incomes essentially in the heart of the city, in the CRA. These typically range between 23,000 and 35,000.
The light blue?
I'm sorry?
No, yeah, go back to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Microphone, sir.
no.
Microphone's not working?
No, no, it's working. It was me. So,
Oh, okay.
no, it was me. I'm sorry, sir. It was me. Now I was looking at an area. So, the lighter blue is the central part of the city, and the darker blue is a little bit the west and up north.
Yeah,
I'm
you've
trying
got,
to figure out.
I don't have a pointer here. Yeah, the heart
Yeah.
of the city where you see 220, 219.
Yeah.
That's basically where we are, right in
Okay,
this general
yes,
area of
yes.
the downtown. Obviously, you know, with what's east, and as you go west here, you're looking
would
at
be-
the I-95, State Road 7 corridor, and then you've got Dixie running essentially through the middle as well. So, your CRA,
I'm in there.
your,
Me
C-
and Duke.
your CRA is real. These census tracts,
Yes.
209, they keep popping up as the ones with either population loss, lower household income, lower family income. And as we're going to see, this also impacts other issues as well. Now, this analysis, I think, is one of the most interesting. We've been doing this in all the studies that we've been doing lately, which is the employment outflow and inflow analysis. We're able to tell who comes into the city each day and who leaves the city each day, but who lives in the city and works here in the city. And you can see, and you can see here, you've got almost 12,000 people coming into the city of North Miami each day to take different jobs. But you had 22,000. Remember, we had what 36,000, I think it was, that you had employed in your labor force, but 22,000 of them leave each day. And only 1,068 live here and work here.
Oh my God, that's awesome.
So this is the kind of imbalance. But once again, you look at this and you go, well, wow, there's something we can do about it. We got 36,000 workers, 22,000 leaving,
Exactly.
and a
It
lot of them are
doesn't make
leaving for
sense.
decent jobs,
Yeah.
and they're living here. So what an incredible economic development opportunity for the city, particularly if we can find housing for them. And even though maybe those 11,000 who are coming in are taking good jobs, maybe we can bring them in if we got a talented workforce there. Here's now, we're gonna focus a little bit more on the housing now, side of it now. I think I already showed you, most of your housing is in the green there, there's your 1 unit detached, and then the darker blue are your 20 or more units. You got vacancy rates for rent, which is the highest in the CRA. We've highlighted those in yellow. For rent, 38.2% rental vacancy rate. That's obviously very, very high.
That is.
City of North Miami as a whole, 29.8, and the county at 18.5. You've also got the seasonal issue, obviously not nearly as much as the county, and we would suspect, and we could, look at those numbers, most of those vacancies were seasonal or more east, the eastern areas of the city. So it's that rental, given the demand for rental, why is there so many vacant rentals? And I guess that's a question. Must have a lot to do with condition, obviously, in certain locations. Or maybe they're being kept vacant for other reasons. That's something to look into. The age, as I mentioned, you can see the long green line. That's all your housing that was built from 1950 to 1959. So obviously, we're dealing with an aging housing stock. This is a really, really critical issue. One of the biggest issues we're finding right now in the county is the issue not just of affordability, but of safe and decent and affordable housing. This is going to be a big discussion going forward in the county and the city of Miami, because God forbid if a hurricane ever did hit some of these areas where you have older housing that's not up to code, then we're going to have some of the issues that we've seen years past when Hurricane Andrew hit Homestead back in 1992. And here's where your housing, the older housing is. Now, once again, the good news is that 218, where you see the dark green there, where you have a high concentration of older housing, that's also some of your better house. That was stuff that was well built years ago, as you know. I'd be more concerned about the housing further out west. Okay.
Scott, you in trouble. I have to move.
Owner-occupied housing, most of your owner-occupied housing is out west as well.
Yeah.
Most of your renter housing is towards the center of the city. Owner-occupied home values, we compare the city with the CRA and the county here, and you can see the cities in orange, the CRAs in, I'm sorry, the cities in orange, the CRAs in blue, and the county is in this light purple. And you can see where most of yours are clustered in the 100 to 200 range, whereas in the county, you see a much higher, not a median home value, but a range of higher values in the 200 to 200 or 300 value. So obviously, owner-occupied values here in the city and within the CRA are much lower than the county. But once again, that may not be a bad thing in terms of affordability if these homes can be rehabilitated, preserved for workers. Median home value, once again, showing it on the map. The older stuff is in the purple, and obviously the values are much less as we get towards the center of the CRA. Cost burden owners, the highest percentages are in the center of the CRA. That's the dark green. Those are upwards of 53, 63%. Cost burden meaning that they pay in excess of 30% of their income on housing costs. And on the renter side, well, this is gross rent. Gross rent, the higher rents are out west, and of course to the east. The lower rents are in the center part of the city and the CRA. But you can see the highest cost burdens because of the low median incomes in both for households and families. The highest cost burden percentages are found in the center of the city and the central CRA.
Excuse me.
Yeah.
When you mentioned the rental portion, you're only referring to residential rental, right?
Yes.
What about the commercial rental? Isn't that
This is focused on housing.
No, this is strictly
just on housing?
strictly residential.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
We then did an affordability analysis, both for homeowners and renters in the city, comparing it to the county, and we're looking at the different income categories from extremely low, which obviously is the bottom, 0 to 30%, all the way up to middle income, which is 101 to 120% of median family income. And you can see, based upon the income range of these households and what they could afford, you see obviously very, very significant gaps in terms of affordability. Now, obviously, at the lowest income categories, these aren't households that would typically be buying anyways. They'd be in a renting situation, but you see that at the moderate and the middle income, you see gaps even at that level. Now, by comparison, though, this city is a lot more affordable than the county as a whole. Because you see their numbers, their gaps to the right, even at the middle income level, 101 to 120,000, you've got a 10,000 gap, which is manageable. You can figure that out. You can deal with that. But almost 40,000 at the county level, which makes it, that's a big gap to fill in terms of gap financing. On the renter side, you've got some, thank you. On the renter side, you've got a surplus. You've got a surplus at the middle income and a slight surplus at the moderate income. Obviously, gaps at the lower income categories, and that's pretty consistent with the county, although yours are, your gaps, or I should say your surplus is a little bit lower because your incomes are a little bit lower. So that's not bad news. Obviously, it's not good news for anyone making under 80% of the AMI, but obviously it's something that would need to be addressed as part of a housing strategy. So what do we recommend? Looking at those, all that data provides, all that analytics provides the underpinnings for the strategies that we've looked at. And now obviously a lot of these strategies are based upon best practice. These are things that have been done in other places, including here in South Florida, as well as nationally. And the first is this issue of mixed-use development, but to do it in targeted locations. I know you've got mixed use on your books, in your zoning, in your land use opportunities, but the idea here is to provide a greater, provide more attention, more focus on mixed use, because That also accommodates the second one, which is developing higher quality mixed income multifamily in the downtown and CRA. You need the appropriate mix of housing and incomes within these projects, but also the appropriate mix of whether it be retail and office. So it's what we're advising cities to do is to really focus on the mix and also on the housing part of it in terms of the incomes that you'd be addressing. So much more targeted and looking at key locations within the CRA, particularly the downtown, 125th, and along Dixie Highway. We're also recommending that you encourage home ownership among your working households in the city through various incentive programs. Obviously, we have a number of homes that are undervalued here. There's probably real opportunities to get people in these homes through various purchase rehab types of programs. Probably not costing a lot of money, but if you can get people in, your value is down, so you're not talking about houses 250, 300, 400. You're looking at homes maybe a little bit under 200,000, I'm sorry. And with just maybe a minimum subsidy, you could probably provide some real incentives to get people living in your downtown area. And obviously that's going to help your economic revitalization as well. Because obviously once you have homeowners with a little bit of income, you have more disposable income, and they can spend money in your downtown. So that works. You've already got some of this going on right now south of the downtown, in the neighborhoods just south of us here. You've got people moving into that area. What we found, and a lot of these people are coming from with some professional occupations. So you've got that demographic change that's been slowly occurring here in the city, which is really encouraging because they're being forced out of like Miami and other locations. The enhanced neighborhood stabilization strategy, this is for your transitional neighborhoods to the west. The idea here is to once again focus on home ownership and preservation of the buildings here, whether it be buildings that are residential or commercial retail. But the idea is to really enhance these locations where you have the greatest opportunity to create workforce housing, particularly mixed income workforce housing, and also the level of mixed use that I was just talking about that could create some of the jobs consistent with those 22,000 people, workers who are leaving each day. Because obviously we want to keep them here, particularly if they're in some of the fields that we've noted, health field, health sector, education, some of those sectors. We want to be able to keep them here, but we want to encourage others to come here so we can diversify that employment. The employment of the residents that live here and provide opportunities for housing at the same time. And then to link workforce development, housing development to economic development, small business creation, there's a number of things that we recommend there that link the two, even encouraging companies that would locate here in terms of affordable housing for their workers, a number of other incentives that could be put in place. But the whole idea is to make sure that your workforce housing strategies are linked to your economic development and commercial revitalization strategies. There should be one discussion. It's not about housing in one discussion, or economic development or CRA redevelopment on the other. The idea is when you're negotiating with developers, to get them to understand the need that you have for workforce housing in the downtown, along the corridors, and the types of jobs that you're looking to create. Make the point that you have a high labor participation rate, that you are attracting workers. We have workers here. We just need the housing and we need the jobs. And I think if you do that with a very targeted, very focused, mixed use type of strategy, you'd probably be very successful, given the demand for this type of housing throughout the county and throughout other areas of even Broward that isn't being addressed right now. So you have that advantage that you're not overpriced, that your properties are not overpriced, including your commercial properties, and your land is not overpriced. So there's a lot of opportunity right now to basically build what you want to build and have developers basically comply with your policies and strategies. With that, thank you.
Thank you. Very well put. Any questions?
Oh, yes. Go ahead, Scott. No, no, after you.
I'll try to run. I apologize for my voice. I'll try to run through my questions.
My
as quick
voice
as
is still
possible.
going.
There you go. Does your report give any advice on development fees or any other funding sources to provide for the construction of new housing?
No, we didn't get into that other, I mean, it was more of a needs assessment, and then policies and strategies more, to look at that, but not specifically financing or any type of funding.
So none of the potential solutions are addressed. It's just a needs report.
No.
No micro housing, no granny flats, just strictly
No,
need.
actually, we wouldn't recommend that, maybe granny flats. What we're recommending is really a higher density mixed use. And we do, it is in the study, what we're talking both vertical and horizontal mixed use at a fairly high density to make it work. So we want to make your mixed use development attractive to developers and teams of developers, because as you know, and we made this point already in previous presentations, we have housing developers and we have commercial retail developers that do really effective mixed use. You really need to assemble a team, like we did in Midtown. We did the study for Midtown years ago, and to get the housing developers and the commercial developers at the table so that we could get what we wanted out of that plan.
What about millennials, though, who are looking for more shared space, smaller housing, not your traditional?
You have a great housing stock in place. Like I said, you've got a value that's, I think, about 157,000. You have single-family homes right now in place. So yeah, work shifting is very, very important, but they're looking for affordable housing. We just completed a study in Doral, and
I got you. You're
Yeah,
great.
so-
Your thumbs up. You've got
Yeah.
lots of background.
Yeah.
I just don't see something that I couldn't have done myself in this report in about 2 days' time. I get it. There's a need throughout South Florida and Dade County for affordable housing. So a needs survey gives us some good data maybe, but I want to see what suggested solutions there are by somebody who comes in and looks at North Miami. The railroad track area is some of the highest ground area, in addition to I-95, Northwest 7th Avenue. What could we be doing in that area, those areas? What should we be doing?
Well, I'll address that. I think what we need to do is take these policy recommendations that they've given us, and then do the kind of the matching work, if you will, with okay, if mixed use is where we need to go, then let's develop a plan on how we execute more.
I don't, and I'm not sure I'm convinced we need more mixed use. I think we just need more affordable housing. Forget the shops on the first floor. I mean, that's nice. And I know what our affordable housing standards are, but I don't see anything new in this. Like I said, I don't see anything that I couldn't have done on my own with my knowledge of the city. I don't see anything that's suggested here that just makes me go, finally, something that speaks to North Miami. And that's my concern with the report. It just seems like a lot of.
well, I will say this, Commissioner. Having done a number of these reports, the most important thing you can provide a city is a market study. And that's essentially what you've got here. There's enough market data in this study. Obviously, I'm only highlighting here in this presentation. There's a full report that has a lot of detail in it and focuses in on and this is what developers are looking at. This is my background. I understand that. I'm going to want to focus in on. I don't want to know what the city is doing as a whole or the CRA. I want to focus in on individual census tracts, which we did in this study, with all the market information I need. I need population data. I need income data. I need to know the values of the housing that's in place. I need to know renter versus owner. So it's all there. So if I'm a developer, I'm going to look at that. Then I want to look at go from the analytics and the market. It's not just a needs assessment, it's a market analysis. And then go from there and look at, okay, well, what policies and strategies are being recommended to address that? And then I'm going to be thinking, okay, then they're looking for a level of mixed use and intensity of use and targeted that they've already told us what areas you need to focus on and where the opportunities might be. So the detail here is very, very explicit as far as the locations, but also the market data and also where those opportunities
But your
might
study
be.
doesn't mention the railroad tracks or the industrial area of North Miami at all.
Well, while it wasn't a full-blown economic development, the idea was to link the need of workforce housing to the economy and to be able to create workforce housing opportunities and locations along with the economic development that would come with higher intensity, more flexible and targeted mixed use and other types of initiatives.
Fair enough. I won't belabor the point. I've got a
Okay.
night in front of me I need to save my voice for.
Okay,
So
no problem.
Mr. Spring, I'd like to see something more. This is just stats and data, so.
We'll work with you and get you
Okay,
what you want.
all right.
I'm done.
This is it?
You do mention, which I don't really love, but don't understand, your community land trust. And is that done anywhere in South Florida?
Yes,
you
it's very prominent in both Broward and Palm Beach. We have a number of organizations doing community land trust.
And if we build some, for those watching or whatever, that means the city maintains ownership of the property and someone else goes out and builds a house on it?
The trust would.
The trust
The
would
trust,
build a house?
yeah, the trust, it's like any other trust. They retain the rights to the property, and then they build on it, or someone else builds on it. The whole idea is that the land underneath the housing is in a trust, as are the properties, and so it's kept affordable in perpetuity. It has certainly its advantages to it in areas where you have high appreciation. I don't know if it's really a necessity for the city of North Miami right now. You've got values right now that are attractive to buyers. I think if you targeted, as we recommended here, home ownership opportunities, purchase rehab types of investments, given those existing values, you could be very successful. You've got values here in a quality of a housing supply that's much better than most other areas of Miami-Dade County, unless you're getting into like places like Doral, places like that. But certainly North Miami-Dade, other than like maybe Aventura, so the older community, you've got a solid housing stock that's properly priced for successful home ownership.
And I think the fact that we do the rehab so successfully, if I may add, I think we're one of the few cities who spent so much more of our general fund dollars into rehab, and the stock that he was showing, a lot of the older homes are the best kept homes, and adding to it. And the only thing I do have a question for you, the labor participation rate, is that folks looking for employment as well, or folks who are not working, or kind of both?
The key term is participation.
Oh.
So they're in the labor market. They either
Looking.
have a job or they're looking for
They're
a job.
looking for a job. Okay. Because we do know education-wise, what you mentioned, does have a lot to do with our current situation. And I think that's why we are so different. And I always like to remind staff that we are different than any other cities because we have so many different barriers. We have folks who speak Creole and Spanish and who not necessarily, who need the little extra help. Thank you.
Thank you.
That's it? Okay, CRA Executive Director report.
You vote?
Are you willing to vote on? You said no. I asked you earlier if we needed to vote on it. You said no.
So what do we do with this report? Do we just put it on the shelf? Are we gonna do something with it?
Yeah.
No,
I mean, in answer to
this will be
Councilman
used for
Galvin.
us to help us guide our housing strategy going forward.
Okay.
So, like you just said, we probably do more in the way of single family rehab program, But based on this, and it affects your area, we probably need to target your area, your district, and do more in that area based on some of the data that I saw in the study.
And I just think we need to do more bold things. Just doing.
I just use that as
one
an
of the
example,
most.
yeah.
I apologize. This is one of the least imaginative reports I've seen. I get it that it's facts and it's stats, but there really should be more coming out of it. We should be talking about specific plans, and I want to see the city. I mean, I've got a bullet point list of things I think the city needs to do. Happy to put it forward after the election, but we've got to do something about it.
And just so you know, it's not that, it's just this. You and I have had several conversations, and we have been working with CP&D on an affordable housing strategy, incentives, permitting things, some of those other things that you're referring to bring forth as an ordinance that we would pass with, all right, here's how we're gonna focus our attention on helping create affordable affordable housing opportunities. So,
Bless you. Here's the question. One of the problems with the county's affordable housing program is that it really creates very few affordable housing opportunities. I was reading in the Miami Herald today that their program last year or so created 27 new affordable housing opportunities. 27 in Miami-Dade County is woeful. We need to keep an eye on actual affordable housing opportunities that we're going to create here. Because if we take these stats and then just provide 10 new units in the next fiscal year, that's not addressing affordable housing.
Right, I
That's
agree.
just pretending like we address affordable housing.
Well, one key point I think we fail to recognize here is a hard participation. I remember a couple of years ago when Dr. Carson, was appointed, he came down to give us the bad news that, do not expect any funding whatsoever from the federal government.
That's not going to change.
Yeah, well,
and
that's not
actually,
gonna.
they cut more this year.
They
were planning to cut more.
So that's even worse.
Yeah.
So
We have to create our own systems.
our own
Where
system.
we create, this is just me being opinionated right now. Developers coming into the city need to pay into a fund that's going to help create affordable housing. We need to ask them to put affordable housing units within their new fancy buildings. I mean, we've got to come up with a real structure, because right now there's only so much we can do with federal and state money, and there's a whole state HUD fund or a housing fund that's not being tapped. But we have to think creatively about what we can do as a city within our own power to address it.
Agreed.
So when you ask us to vote on this, vote to
Accept the report.
vote to accept the report.
I'll make a motion that we move to that we accept the report as presented.
Second.
No, go ahead.
I have a motion made by Board Member Galvin to accept the report as presented. That motion was seconded by Board Member Desume. All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
All opposed? Item passes 4-0.
Fiscal year 17-18 annual report.
As per the state statutes, we're required to publish an annual report by March 31st, which we did. It is
Thank you
posted
very
on-
much, sir. Thank you.
It is posted on our website. It was already submitted to the county for review. It is attached to your package. We've already sent notice to Miami Herald on the agenda. We've put a notice in the Miami Herald as required by state statutes that our annual report is available for review. And we're printing copies. That's what we use to give to developers and interested retailers at conferences. So I just wanted to let you know that we did, as always, meet our deadline, and we published by the March 31st deadline.
Is that a report that we see that comes out with
It's
the
a book.
booklet?
Yeah.
Yeah,
it's the book.
we'll,
Oh, okay.
you got the financials presented to you already from the CPA
Audit.
firm. This is our annual report, and it talks about the projects.
Activities.
and all that
Got
stuff,
it,
yeah.
got it.
Mhm. And lastly, as per our grant guidelines, I needed to provide an update on Lost City Brewery. Although Councilman Gallivan had already reached out to me for a resident before. They were approved as of today by the building department. They just have to come in and pay for the permit, and they will start the construction as of next week. We are moving ahead. Most of the delays is unfortunately dealing at the county, but the minute it was done, we were able to resolve everything. They came and we were able to expedite it through the zoning and the building department.
Okay, if there is no more report, we need a motion.
I was going to say, the faster we can serve more beer, the better.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? Thank you. We'll be back in 30 minutes, 7 p.m. for our regularly scheduled council meeting. Thank you very much.